Hey guys, this is Editor Goebel. As it's close to the holidays, I wanted to try and experiment with a new, more free-form version of making videos. If it bombs, I'll just hide it, so consider yourself lucky if you're watching this. And if you like the idea of more experimental videos, give this video a like, tell me in the comments, and then I can gauge whether or not it's worth making more of. So without further ado, let's give it up for unscripted opinions about the lance and which lances look good. Right, don't worry, that's me talking so that I can refind it and sync it up later. Oh, I had done. Don't worry. Yeah. So hello, this is an unscripted video. Normally I try and script them so that they're a little bit more coherent. I've got a couple of notes before we go into it, namely that I don't remember all the names of the lances, so I'm probably gonna butcher some of them and call them silly things. We also don't have all of the lance images. I couldn't find all of them online, so some of them will be replaced with icons. Just deal with that. That's what we're gonna have to do. So today, I thought it'd be a bit of fun to just make a tier list of all the lances. Obviously, you can't really tier list them in some sort of objective fashion, so we're gonna just do it on how they look, because how they look is important. So, starting with the first one on our list, we've got the Hermitor Lance. I think the Hermitor Lance is just middle of the pack. I think it's actually one of the better lances to start with. I'm going to put it in B tier because there's nothing wrong with it, but there's nothing right with it. It fits the feel of the Hermitor Lance, or Hermitor as a creature. It's got this sort of very crabby, carapacean feel to it. It's also got, like, you can tell it's quite an old Monster Hunter weapon because it's got these weird extra doohickeys. It's got those sort of metal strips with the spikes on that you only really get in the older games, I think. They feel a little bit more created by a person with extra non-monster parts compared to a lot of the newer weapons. And speaking of the newer weapons, we've got the normal Magnum Arlo Lance, and I think that's I like the shape of the shield. I also really like the fact that it's Magnum Arlo's tail, but as a big pokey stick. So I'm gonna put that in A category, or tier A tier. And I think that the Incel Magnum Arlo is S tier. I really like that lance. I think it's just a really cool upgrade. Make it darker as a whole, and then give it some sort of funky blue. Okay, there was a funny blip in recording there, so we'll restart again. Going back to the Great Baggy Lance, I really like the colors on this, and I really like the shape, so I'm gonna put it in S tier. Don't really have much to say on it, but I like it. It's a really cool lance. The Malzeno Lance, on the other hand, is similarly S tier, but it's for a very different reason. I love the sort of like the very fitting theme that it has. It's very much Vlad the Impaler stab stick, and it's kind of metal for that reason. It's quite a funky lance. The normal Rajang Lance, on the other hand, I'm not the biggest fan of. I really, really, really like the lance, but the shield lets it down. Again, it's quite an old lance, and so, you know, like, there's an extent, a part of, like, it just isn't modern, but the shield really, yeah, I'm gonna put it in C. It really dampers the whole deal with the lance. The Ibushi Lance, on the other hand, the Ibushi Lance, I'm gonna put in D tier. I like the colors. The shield is fun, but it's a little bit too large, and it doesn't always mesh well with the character. You can't really see over it, and I don't like the plasticiness of the weapon. It just feels, you know, weak. Kulu Lance, it's a slap-on-skin weapon. It didn't get fixed after World and Iceborne, D tier. The Kamura Lance, I actually quite like, especially the final G rank tier. The shield is really, really cool. I like the whole sort of Japanese steel working industry sort of theme of the village, and to have these be the like signature weapons is really fun. The little crescent cross spike across the lance as well works really nicely with the new charged wide sweep attack. I think it's a pretty good lance. Can't remember the name of the monster. Frankenstein Man. It's boring. He's kind of unimpactful. I wish that he would go into his final form, or, you know, his final rage mode more often, and do it much earlier in the fight, because it happens and then he dies, and so it's sort of forgettable. Renaploster. The monsters are forgettable, the little small, I can't even remember their names, Reneplox, but it's a very cool looking lance. I like the sharpness of it, and it's a very fun sort of ooga booga caveman style. Sort of unrefined but still powerful. So I'm gonna put it in A tier. The Ludroth Lance, I kind of hate the sponge, especially now that the sponge is spongy, because it doesn't make sense to have sponge on a sharp stabbing weapon. But the rest of it looks pretty good, and I think it's similar to the Great Baggy Lance. It's got the same sort of spiky top to the shield, it's got the same very thin sharpness to the actual lance, but I think it's gonna go to B tier because of the sponge. Volvodon, I have nothing to say about Volvodon. It's not bad, but it's not good either. B tier. Nawa, D tier, don't like it. It's like Ibushi's, but it's got a split prong. Just doesn't look like you could actually like do any damage with it. The Rampart Lance, I really like. It's a little bit on the bulky side, especially in Rise. Having a huge sort of castle wall shield is cool, but the lance itself sometimes looks like it's too big for your character. So I'm gonna knock that down to B. I do like it though. The Royal Order Lance, I want to put it in S tier. No, I'm gonna put it in A tier. It's so close to being S tier, but it's too wide. The lance is too wide. If it was thin, it would be easy S tier, if not top of S tier. But I don't like how thick the lance is. It doesn't look like a good stabbing implement. Zamite Lance. I kind of love it for the memes. I love that it's actually really strong. But I hate the shield. It's so bulky, and bulky in like a weird way rather than like a fun, it's a huge shield. So C tier. Sabertooth. Barioth Lance, easy S tier. I love that lance. The Amatusk is just really nicely coloured. Lunagoron's Lance. Lunagoron's Lance is difficult to place. I like it. It's sharp. And I guess the colours are nice, but it doesn't strike me as overwhelmingly Lunagoron. It feels a little bit generic blue monster. Like, I think if you paired the weapon to the monsters and asked someone who's never played Monster Hunter to like match the weapons to the monsters, I think Lunagron's lance would be one of the more difficult ones to do. But I do like the fun chain gimmick where it sort of unleashes itself when you when you sheath it, or when you unsheath it rather. So let's put it in B tier. Rathalos lance is a staple. It's, you know, it is what it is. Like, it's sort of at the heart of the series and of the franchise as a whole. But I kinda don't like it. Bug lance is cool. I've always liked this lance, but I'm not really a fan of the hilt of it, weirdly. I think the hilt's a little funny, so we'll put it in A tier. Elder Babel, better than Rampant. I like the color. Reminds me of the Ace Veteran from Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. We'll put it in A tier. Don't remember this one's name, but it's the Anomaly Monster Lance. Easy S tier, I like it. Shame you can't change the color. If you could change the color, like you could change the Rampart weapon or the Rampage weapons in the base game, that would be probably the single best lance in the game, but it's locked to green, which kind of sucks. I don't know the name of this lance. Heat lance, maybe? D tier, it's rubbish. It's not even a slap on skin, it's just a slap on color. Valstrax's lance, on the other hand, I think is going to be a controversial one. I don't like it. I don't think the lance works for me. It doesn't look strong. Like, I think if you were to stab someone with it, the little bits of like Valstrax's wing would just fall off whatever the actual base of the lance is, and it just doesn't work for me. Mizutsune's lance, on the other hand, if we're talking about Violet Mizutsune's, I'm a big fan. I like that. A tier. I think the colors are really nice. And I thought that normal Mizutsune's lance was good, but once I've seen Violet Mizutsune's lance, I think that's gonna be bumped down to B tier. Gos Harag is, it's a difficult one. I really like the monster, but I think there's a lot more that they could have done with it. The claws and having it like as an arm that you stab with is interesting, and the shield is good, but I think there are a lot cooler ideas. There are more interesting ideas that they could have got away with that just doesn't happen, and that sucks. So C tier. Kushala, we don't even need to talk about Kushala Daora's lance. Easy S tier, no questions asked, no questions needed. Teostra's, on the other hand, the shield is really cool. The colors are fun. I don't like the fact that it's a short lance. It's always felt a little bit stubby, especially with the flat top. I get that it's supposed to be like a cannon, or that the top is supposed to be a flamethrower of some sort with the little indents and the holes, but I wish there was some sort of animation to represent that. So B tier, I think. Furious Rajang is, it's so awkward. The shield is a lot better, but the lance itself is less good. Weirdly, the horns feel less sharp and less pointy, and that sucks when you've got a weapon that is about poking things. I think as a whole it's better than the normal Rajang lance, so it'll get B tier, but it's a low B tier. Titranodon, I have no opinions on this, but I think I have no opinions in like a negative sense, so C tier. Astalos lance, almost too flimsy for me. Looks very brittle. The colors are nice though. It's got a fun sort of neon green styling to it. So B tier. B tier? A tier? Yeah, B tier. Jaggy Lance, the Great Azuchi Lance is cool. I like the tiny shield, weirdly. I think it's, I guess not like, but I respect the individuality of the lance. It's very different from a lot of lances that we normally get, but it gets docked a lot of points because of, because it's got that horrific one-sidedness to it. So B tier. Mushroom Lance is Mushroom Lance. S tier, Remobra Lance. I liked it until I realized that the trident, the trident head, is a Remobra's head that has been cut in half, and that the trident bits are actually fangs. I dock points for that, but I can also understand if someone realizes that and like puts it in S tier. So we'll leave it in B tier. For the Gore Mogala family lances, possibly controversial, not really a big fan of either Gore or Shagaru's lances. I'm not super great on the flag berryness of the wisps that they have on a lance. However, I really like chaotic gores. I think the golden black works really well. The long tusk spear, I think objectively is a poor, it's basic, it's kind of bare bones, if you pardon the pun. It's uninteresting, but there's something about the lance. It's so long and sharp looking that I'm gonna put it in A tier. Puki Puki, same as Kuluyaku, failed to get an upgrade after being a slap-on-skin weapon. D tier. Geismagorm. Is that the pronunciation? Geismagorm? Geismagorm's lance is interesting. I want to like it, but I hate the fact that it's hollow. The shield is really good. The shield is like just classic shield. I really hate the fact that it's hollow, and I hate the fact that it's just sort of like a toenail. It's a C tier. This might have been the one that was called Long Tusk, actually. I kind of really like the shield for this one, and the lance has still got that sort of caveman barbarianism. So we'll put that in A tier. D tier for this, it's just a boring lance. Same for you, I don't have any interesting thoughts about you. Nagakuga's lance is a classic, easy A tier, and I really like just the subtle changes they gave to Lucent's variation, the lighter blue with the orange like speckles on it. Wonderful. Roaring Wyvern. Is it Roaring Wyvern? Dodging Wyvern? Either way, Roaring Wyvern's lance, with the right armor set, S tier. Like, you're just holding a big Dragonator, what's not to love? But with most armor pieces, it doesn't work, and it looks sort of brokenly large. It doesn't look like it fits your character's hands properly. So I'm gonna drop it to B tier, but I really like the lance. Really don't care about Basarios' weapon. I think they need to do a couple, maybe they need to do some reworks of the older weapons. I think keep them to the style, but maybe just update them to the modern versions of Monster Hunter. I think this is just the basic iron weapon. I don't have any bad feelings about this, other than the fact that it was so common in World because of the slap-on skins. But because it's not World anymore, I think it doesn't deserve D tier. Maybe it does deserve D tier. I think it's kind of basic. Yeah, let's put it there. Zinogre's Lance gets points for having a funky little electric animation. Its shield is very small, and that's kind of interesting. But I think B tier. But Aknosom's Lance, that's another easy S tier. And if we look at the S tiers, I mean, they're not so similar that there's an obvious pattern. But, I mean, maybe we drop that guy down to somewhere where he belongs. But sharp lances with thin tips does seem to be a common trend. Basilgease's doesn't quite fit that trend. Weirdly, I don't like the fur on the shield, I think, is the main thing. I think that's going to keep it in B tier, and that's the same for Seething Basilgease. I don't really have a distinction or a preference between Seething Basilgease or normal Basilgease's lances. Normal Bone Lance, on the other hand, I detest. It feels too basic. But I guess maybe that's the point, right? Because they're designed to be, this is the lance you get, it's kind of ugly, go and upgrade so you can have a pretty one. Although that sort of bucks the trend with the Kimura weapons, because they're actually quite nice. Diablos, I like the Diablos Lance, easy S tier. Similar reasons to all the other S tiers. Sharp Point looks good. I like the shield. It's got it looks like a proper shield. Like you could properly block something with it. And it's also not so large that, it would be impossible to carry. Kodachi's Lance has grown on me a lot. I like the way that it represents Kodachi. It feels sharp and dangerous, but also quite flimsy. It's a little short. I think it could be longer. I think that's probably the biggest thing holding it back. But I think its uniqueness and its the fact that it's actually been an upgrade compared to a slap-on skin weapon, on top of the way that it sort of meshes well with Kodachi's character, puts it in A tier for me. Tigrex, a lot of people got bored with Tigrex's. I think bored is probably the correct term. After how dominant it was with the end game for Rise, and the fact that you couldn't layer weapons in the base game. But I do like it. It's a good lance. Is it good enough for S tier though? No, I don't think so. Flower Lance. It's a meme lance. I think meme lances are fun, but it's nothing special. Cactus Lance. Espinasse lances are great. I like them. So I think they both get, I think A tier for the normal one, because normal Espinasse let down a little bit because of the color, unfortunately, but the Flaming Espinasse Lance, really nice color, really nice design, 10 out of 10. And that leaves us with only a few more lances left. I guess we forgot to do Silver Loss. Is Silver Loss in the same category as the normal Rathalos Lance? Yeah, I don't really see much difference. It's just a color change. Baroth Lance. I really like Baroth's shield. I think that's a fun shield, and I like the 3D-ness to its shape. It sort of has a concave sort of shape to the shield, but let down by the lance itself. Does that mean B tier or C tier though? Is it better than a Flower Lance? Yeah, let's put it in B tier. Oh, poor old Seragios. So, if Seragios has got his actual final weapon in the game, the final version that is fully evolved, for lack of a better term, turns into a pine cone when you unsheath it. Easy S tier. I really like that weapon. But I can't, if it doesn't do that, then it looks a little bit frumpy. So I think, is it even B tier? Might be C tier. C tier it is. Shogun's Lance. It's dated, I think. It's really, really old, and that holds it back, but I do like it. The shape of the lance itself is fun. The shield possibly wants a bit of a rework, but the lance is cool. I think that's enough to get it into A tier at least. And then our final lance is, I don't even remember the name of the lance. The Toxic Kamura, Toxic Kamuri, the Toxic Bug Lance. It's a fun lance. It's nothing special. B or C, I think. Yeah, B is fine. Yeah, so I guess this is the final tier list. Hey guys, I'm back. It's me, Edited Goble. I've returned because I couldn't figure out a nice way to round off the video before it ended. I hope you enjoyed my weird takes and my spicy lance opinions. I'll try and leave a link in the description in case you want to try your own hand at tier listing all the lances. Either way, I'd love to see you roast my taste in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you want to see more, maybe consider subscribing. Not to mention that I've got a bunch of other videos, so why not give those a look? And finally, thanks for watching all the way to the end. I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a well-deserved break.